The Forgotten Past. The chamber of the Galactic Council was a place where secrets of the galaxy were whispered but rarely believed. Tall pillars of glowing stone surrounded the hall, casting a silver light over hundreds of alien delegates. Voices echoed in dozens of tongues, each one layered with fear and denial. They were speaking of humans. For most in the galaxy, humans were only legends, ancient stories told in hushed tones. A violent race, it was said, capable of shaping entire worlds with fire, building machines that thought like gods, and fighting wars that burned across the stars. But those stories belonged to the past. According to the official record, humanity had destroyed itself thousands of years ago. Their homeworld had gone silent, their colonies were dust, their ships had vanished, and yet, something had changed. From the edge of a dead star system, strange energy signals had been detected. The readings were impossible to explain. The power spikes were too precise, too controlled, as if something had awoken after centuries of silence. The hall erupted in arguments. "It is nothing more than natural radiation," one alien declared, his tentacles slapping the table. "Foolish myths," another barked, his scales shimmering with irritation. "Humans are dead. They have been dead for millennia." But others leaned forward in unease. Their eyes flickered nervously. "And if they are not?" one whispered. The council, in its arrogance, decided to act. A single exploration ship was dispatched to investigate the old system. A ship commanded by Captain Rarek of the Solari, an alien species known for their caution and discipline. He did not believe in myths. He believed in evidence. But as his vessel entered the silent system, even his confidence began to falter. The system was wrong. Planets drifted like tombstones around the dying star. The world that had once been marked Terra was shattered, its surface scarred and burned. But in its orbit floated massive structures, rings of metal, stations half collapsed, still circling after all these centuries. Some were broken skeletons, some burned husks, and yet, deep within the debris, faint glimmers of energy pulsed like a heartbeat that refused to die. The crew grew restless. Strange signals whispered through their instruments. Old transmissions, in a language none of them understood. It was not random static. It was ordered, deliberate, like a warning. They descended onto the ruins of a smaller world, one of humanity's forgotten colonies. Dust covered the ground like ash. The cities were broken skeletons of steel and stone, buried under centuries of silence. But beneath the rubble, Captain Ryrek's crew uncovered something they did not expect. A doorway. It was enormous, carved into the bedrock, its surface etched with strange symbols that glowed faintly when touched. The door was sealed, yet it hummed with power, ancient energy that no alien device could mimic. "What is this?" one officer asked, his voice trembling. Ryrek's sharp eyes narrowed. "A vault. And it was never meant for us." Against his better judgment, he gave the order to open it. Machines whirred. Beams of energy cut into the stone until at last the massive doors groaned and began to move on their own. The crew stepped back as dust fell in thick clouds. Beyond the threshold lay a chamber vast enough to hold a city. Towers of strange crystal reached into the darkness. Machinery hummed quietly as if it had never stopped working. And in the center of it all stood a great black monolith, glowing with faint lines of blue. The alien crew stared in silence. Rarek stepped closer, his scales shimmering in the dim light. "It is still alive," he muttered. The monolith pulsed, once, as though it had heard him. Lights ran across its surface, symbols flickering, rearranging. And then in a deep voice that echoed in the bones of every creature present, it spoke. Designation detected. Non-human presence. The crew froze. The voice continued, calm and merciless. "Access denied. This system belongs to Terra. You do not belong here." The air grew heavy. The machines around them stirred, their hum turning into a low vibration that rattled the floor. The aliens stumbled back in panic. "Shut it down," an officer cried. "We can't," shouted another. Captain Rarek stared at the awakening machine. His heart pounded in his chest, but he did not move. For the first time, he understood what the old legends had meant. The humans had not only built weapons, they had built guardians. And those guardians had not forgotten their duty. The monolith pulsed brighter, and the chamber filled with a thunderous sound. It was not rage. It was not warning. It was a promise. Humanity was not destroyed. Humanity will rise again. The lights cut out, plunging the chamber into darkness, but in the silence that followed, every alien present felt the same thing. Fear. The forgotten past had spoken, and it had promised a future the galaxy was not ready to face. Whispers of power. The return journey from the dead system was silent. Captain Ryrek's crew said little. Their voices caught in their throats, their minds heavy with what they had witnessed. They had awakened something that should never have been touched. The council demanded reports, but Ryrek's words were vague. He spoke of ruins, of strange energy, of machines that still moved long after humanity's fall, but he left out the most important detail. He did not mention the voice. He did not repeat the words that had shaken him to his core. Humanity will rise again. Yet the galaxy began to sense the truth without his confession. It started with whispers. Traders reported seeing old satellites drift into life, their lights flickering as they transmitted signals in an unknown code. Ships that strayed too close to human ruins disappeared without trace. On distant worlds, ancient probes, long believed dead, suddenly launched from the ground, rising into orbit as if answering a forgotten call. The galaxy trembled with rumors. Some said it was a ghost, machines running without masters, only illusions of power. Others believed humanity had returned in secret, hiding, waiting for the right moment. But no one could deny the fear that spread. Empires that had ruled unchallenged for centuries now whispered like frightened children. On the great city world of Carvos, scholars of the Veari species gathered in their vaulted halls. They brought forth fragments recovered from human ruins, slivers of metal, small devices sealed tight against time, yet every attempt to unlock them ended the same way. Failure. One young scientist, trembling with excitement, pressed his report into the hands of his elders. "The machines reject us," he whispered. "They know we are not human." The elders dismissed him, calling it superstition. But when another researcher tried to force open a shard of human technology, the device exploded with a flash of light that burned through half the laboratory. The survivors spoke of a voice that filled their ears before the blast. Unauthorized. News of the incident spread across the stars. Fear turned to panic. The Galactic Council held meeting after meeting, their chambers echoing with shouts. Some demanded the ruins be destroyed, erased before they spread their infection further. Others argued that humanity's technology was too powerful to waste. It must be studied, controlled, stolen. But beneath the debate ran a darker truth, one no delegate wanted to say aloud. If the Guardians still remembered their duty, then perhaps humanity itself had not been erased. Perhaps they had left something behind, something waiting. Meanwhile, in the ruins of Terra, the monolith that Captain Ryrek had awakened stirred again. Its light reached across the void, silent but commanding. Ancient networks buried deep under rock and ash flickered to life. Machines the size of mountains hummed softly, unseen by the stars. In hidden chambers, voices whispered in languages long forgotten. They were not alive, not as flesh and blood, but they were not dead either. They remembered. They waited. Across the galaxy, alien empires began to prepare for war. On the cold world of Dresnar, the Torth Dominion assembled fleets larger than any in living memory. Their warlords roared in confidence, claiming they would crush whatever. Phantom lingered in human ruins. "If humans return," they laughed, "we will finish what extinction began." But their laughter hid their unease, for in the darkness of their own databanks, strange signals had begun to appear. Old records, once erased, now restored. Images of human warships, towering machines, soldiers who burned with fire in their eyes. The data came from nowhere, yet every screen it touched carried the same warning: leave Terran space. The warning was not shouted, it was calm, direct, final. And the most terrifying part was this: no one knew who had sent it. In the council chambers, Captain Ryrek stood once more before the delegates, his scales dulled with exhaustion, his voice heavy with truth he could no longer hide. "You call them myths," he said coldly. "You call them extinct. But you are wrong. Humanity is not gone. Their machines remember them. Their worlds remember them. And I believe," he paused, his throat dry, "that the humans themselves remember." The hall fell silent. No delegate laughed this time, because in every corner of the galaxy whispers had already begun to grow. Traders spoke of ruins where lights flickered like stars. Soldiers told tales of shadowed figures walking among the machines, never close, enough to touch but close enough to be seen. The galaxy had long believed that humanity was buried under its own ashes. But now it felt as if those ashes were beginning to stir. And in those whispers, in those fragments of light, one truth grew stronger with every passing day. The forgotten were waking. The galaxy had disturbed something it could not control. The awakening. The galaxy was no longer quiet. From the farthest colonies to the oldest empires, strange events unfolded one after another. Ships patrolling empty regions vanished, leaving behind only broken distress calls filled with static. Abandoned, human probes, once lifeless relics, rose from forgotten surfaces powered by forces alien scientists could not measure. Across the stars, long-dead satellites turned toward alien worlds, their silent sensors watching once again. The whispers had become louder. Everywhere the message was the same: you entered Terran space, leave. But the message did not come from one place. It came from everywhere. On screens and data streams, even through ancient communication arrays thought to be useless. The warning arrived in languages alien species did not know, yet somehow understood. The galaxy was beginning to believe the impossible. On the moon world of Sarika, a mining colony reported a vision in the skies. Workers looked up as a massive hologram stretched across the heavens. It showed flames consuming worlds, and from the fire rose human soldiers in armor black as night. The image lasted only seconds before vanishing, but the miners fell to their knees trembling. They had seen ghosts, or a promise. The Galactic Council met once again, this time in near silence. Every delegate had heard the warning. Every delegate knew the stories. But they could not agree on one question: were these only machines, or were the humans themselves returning? Some argued it was only ancient programming, guardians that had endured too long. But others feared a darker truth, that humanity had never truly vanished, that somewhere hidden in the void, their kind still lived, waiting. Meanwhile, deep in the ruins of Terra, the truth began to stir. Beneath mountains of ash and stone, an ancient network of machines lit with blue fire. Buried, chambers opened for the first time in centuries. Fluid-filled pods hissed, their surfaces fogging as life inside began to move. In one chamber, eyes flickered open, eyes that had not seen the stars in thousands of years. The Guardians had done more than protect technology. They had protected their makers. Back in Council space, panic was already spreading. Reports arrived. From every empire, fleets had encountered invisible barriers around human ruins. Ships entering those zones lost power, their crews vanishing without a trace. Entire squadrons disappeared in silence, and then came the first direct contact. On the edge of a dead system, a Zorathi battleship detected movement. Its scanners reported nothing alive, only drifting wreckage. But then, from beneath a shattered moon, a massive structure began to rise. It was no wreckage. It was a ship. Black, ancient, and alive with power, it dwarfed the alien vessel. Its surface shifted with glowing lines of light, its engines silent but unstoppable. The Zorathi captain ordered weapons to fire, panic in his voice. The cannons lit the void with fire, but the shots never touched the human vessel. The beams bent away, scattered like dust in the wind. Then a voice filled the alien ship, not through speakers, but inside the crew's very minds. Calm, unhurried, absolute. This is Terran space. Leave, or be erased. The Zarathi battleship fled without another shot, but their terror became the galaxy's warning. Humanity's ghosts were not only awake, they were defending. Across the stars, empires debated war, but none dared to act quickly. The bravest argued for attack, the fearful begged for retreat, and the greedy whispered of stealing human secrets. But behind all those voices was one growing truth. The galaxy had lived without humans for millennia, but it had grown soft in their absence. Wars between alien empires were nothing compared to the firestorms humans had once unleashed, and now, if they had truly returned, nothing would ever be the same. On the ruined Earth, the great monolith pulsed brighter than ever before. Machines marched in silence, their purpose renewed. Hidden bunkers unsealed themselves. Ancient weapons that had not seen daylight in ages stirred with quiet hums. And in the deepest vault, a human figure stepped forward from a pod. His body trembled as he took his first breath in centuries. His eyes opened, sharp, cold, burning, with memory. He did not speak, but he did not need to, because in that moment, the awakening was complete. Humanity was no longer forgotten, and the galaxy had only just begun to understand what that meant. Return of the Forgotten. The galaxy could no longer pretend. What had begun as whispers was now undeniable. Humanity's shadow stretched across the stars, and every empire felt it pressing down on them. The Galactic Council, once proud, once unshaken, was drowning in fear. Delegates shouted across the chamber, their voices breaking into chaos. "We must destroy the ruins before more awaken." "Fool, you cannot destroy what refuses to die. They are extinct. These are only machines." Machines do not speak with the voices of the dead. No one agreed, but all of them trembled. At the far edges of Council space, one empire decided to act. The Torth Dominion, proud and ruthless, gathered their greatest fleet, more than 500 warships, armed with weapons that had conquered. Countless worlds were sent toward the ruins of Terra. The Torth believed themselves unstoppable. They laughed at the warnings. To them, humanity was only a memory. But when their fleet entered the system, the laughter died. The broken world of Earth spun silently before them. Its surface was scarred, its skies burned. Yet even in ruin, it felt alive. The Torth Admiral ordered his ships forward, weapons locked, ready to erase every trace of human history. And then, the ground split open. From beneath the shattered crust, something rose. Dust and stone fell away as a colossal shape emerged, an ancient warship, larger than any vessel the Torth had ever seen. Its hull was black, carved with glowing lines of light, pulsing like veins. It moved with the weight of a sleeping giant finally awake. The Torth fleet froze. Their scanners screamed warnings they could not understand. The warship's surface shifted, revealing vast cannons older than the Torth's very civilization. Energy swirled around it, bending space itself. And then, for the first time in millennia, the galaxy heard a human voice. Not through speakers, but through the void itself. We were forgotten, but we never died. The words echoed in every mind, heavy with power. The Torth Admiral shouted orders, desperation cutting through his pride. "Fire! Fire everything!" The fleet unleashed its fury. Beams of plasma, missiles of fire, storms of destruction rained down on the human warship. But the attacks bent away, scattering like waves against an unshakable mountain. The warship did not answer with rage. It answered with precision. A single beam of white light cut across the void. One Torth battleship shattered instantly, its remains scattering into ash. Another blast followed, then another. Within minutes, ships that had stood for centuries were gone, erased as if they had never existed. The Torth fleet broke. Panic spread faster than orders. Ships turned, engines flaring, desperate to escape, but the warship's voice followed them. This is Terran space. You were warned. The survivors fled, carrying terror back to the galaxy. Their pride was broken, their fear unhidden, and with their retreat, the truth spread across every empire. Humanity's power had returned. In the ruins of Terra, the warship hovered silently above the planet, its lights dimming but never fading. It was not just a machine. It was a message. And, inside, deep within its command halls, something impossible stirred. A human figure walked among the glowing walls, his footsteps echoing. His face was worn, his eyes sharp. He was no ghost, no hologram. He was alive. He stood before the ancient controls, his hand brushing across them like one greeting an old friend. The ship responded to him instantly, lights burning brighter, systems aligning. For centuries it had waited, not for aliens, not for thieves, but for him. His voice was low, almost a whisper, but the ship carried it into the stars. It's time. The galaxy shivered as new signals burst from Terra. Dormant fleets in distant systems began to awaken. Stations hidden under broken moons lit with fire. Guardians long buried under oceans rose again. Humanity's legacy was no longer a whisper. It was an army. The Council tried to remain calm, but the truth was now undeniable. The galaxy was not facing ghosts. It was facing the return of the forgotten. The last message. The galaxy could no longer deny the truth. Humanity had returned, not as a whisper, not as a fading echo of the past, but as a living storm. The survivors of the Torth fleet limped back to their homeworlds, carrying stories that shook empires. Their words spread like fire. One human warship destroyed us all. Some refused to believe. Others trembled in silence. But no one laughed anymore. The Galactic Council met in desperation. Delegates shouted over one another, their voices breaking with fear. We must surrender before it is too late. No. If we unite our fleets, perhaps we can hold them back. Fool. You saw what one ship did. Do you think your fleets matter? They are only machines, ancient weapons. They cannot fight forever. But even as they argued, more reports arrived. Across dead star systems, human stations lit with power. Fleets long buried beneath ice and rock rose into orbit. Probes launched from long-dead worlds, their signals filling the void with a single message: we are awake. And then the message changed. On every world, in every empire, holograms appeared in the skies. The same figure spoke to them all, a human, his face worn by centuries of sleep, but his eyes sharp as fire. He stood aboard the colossal warship above Terra, his presence undeniable, his voice calm but filled with iron. For too long, the galaxy believed humanity was lost. You called us myths. You called us extinct. But you forgot the truth. We do not die so easily. The delegates froze. The common people watched in silence. Even warlords lowered their heads. The human continued. You entered our ruins. You touched what was not yours. And now, you will hear the last message of Terra. Behind him, the warship's hull split open, revealing weapons so vast that stars themselves seemed to bend around them. The galaxy had never seen power like this. It was not rage they felt. It was judgment. This is our warning. Terran space is not yours. Our ruins are not yours. Our future is not yours. Leave us and live. Challenge us, and you will not exist to regret it. Silence followed, a silence heavier than war. On distant worlds, alien leaders wept. On proud battle stations, soldiers refused to fight. Entire empires, once unshaken, bent under the weight of that voice. And then came the moment that froze history forever. The human raised his hand, and the warship obeyed. Across the void, an entire asteroid belt burned with white fire, reduced to dust in seconds. The demonstration needed no explanation. The galaxy understood. We are humanity, the voice declared. We have returned, and we remember. The holograms faded, but the message did not. It lived in every corner of the galaxy, carved into the hearts of every species. The Council never spoke of war again. The empires retreated from Terran space, leaving ruins untouched, their greed drowned by fear. In the shadows, whispers turned into awe. Some feared the humans as monsters. Others saw them as gods. But all agreed on one truth. The galaxy had been remade in a single night. On the bridge of the warship, the human stood alone, gazing out at the stars. His people were few. His fleets were old. But it did not matter. Humanity had survived worse before. He placed his hand on the console, his voice a whisper meant only for himself, yet somehow echoing through the ship's steel walls. They thought we were forgotten. They thought we were gone. But they will learn. His eyes burned with fire as the ship prepared to jump into the stars. That humanity always returns. The engines roared, space tore open, and the last warship of Terra disappeared into the night, carrying with it the most terrifying truth the galaxy had ever known. Humanity was back, and this time, they would never be forgotten again.